Welcome. I'm the White Rabbit Witch. Join me and tap the subscribe button below. Now, let's step into today's story.
Even now, as an adult, rainy days make my chest tighten in a way I can't explain. I've lived through storms, commutes under umbrellas, even typhoons, but it's not the rain itself that unsettles me. It's the memory of one night when I was just a boy of 10. That day, the rain had started early in the morning. Heavy drops pounded against the classroom windows, smudging the chalk on the blackboard into a ghostly haze. The teacher's voice barely carried over the steady drumming outside. We children were restless, peeking through the glass, trading whispers that carried far more weight than they should have. Every school has its ghost stories. For us, it was the woman in the mask. "She shows up when it rains," someone whispered. "If she looks at you, you can't escape." We all laughed, pretending to be braver than we were. But beneath the laughter, I could see it, the unease in their eyes, the way some kids hunched closer to the blackboard as though distance from the windows might keep them safe. The bell rang, and the hallway burst into chaos. Children rushed outside with colorful umbrellas, splashing through puddles, shouting, laughing. For them, the storm was just another playground. I lingered. My bag felt heavier than usual, my hands colder than they should have been. I don't know why. Maybe part of me already knew something was waiting. When I finally stepped out, the chill of the evening rain cut through me. I opened my small umbrella and took a step forward. And then I froze. Beyond the school fence, in the curtain of rain, she was standing there. A tall figure in a beige coat, a black umbrella tilted against the downpour. And across her face, a white mask, gleaming faintly even in the dim light. At first I told myself, she must be someone's mother, a parent waiting for their child. But it didn't feel right. Parents stood close to the gate, calling their children, waving at them. No one ever waited that far away. And more than that, no one else seemed to notice her. The world went on around her. Children darted past, cars splashed through puddles, yet she remained utterly still, untouched by it all. Only I could see her. Only I could feel her eyes on me. Then, she tilted her head. It was the smallest movement. But for me, it was like lightning striking. It wasn't casual, it wasn't meaningless. It was an acknowledgement, a silent message. She knew I was watching. She knew I saw her. And in that moment, I felt chosen. My body moved before my mind did. I ran. I ran harder than I ever had, shoes slipping, water soaking through my socks. I didn't dare look back. The fear that she might be right behind me, reaching out from under that umbrella, was enough to push me faster. When I finally stumbled through the door of my house, drenched and shaking, I slammed it shut and pressed my back against it. My lungs burned, my heart raced, and yet, the only thing I could think was, she saw me. That night, I couldn't close my eyes. Every time lightning lit up my bedroom window, I half expected to see her standing under the street lamp, still and waiting. It would have been easier to dismiss it all as imagination, a child's fantasy in the rain. But I knew, deep down, it wasn't. The woman in the mask, the one who appeared only when it rained, the one with the mouth hidden beneath, she was real. And that night, she had already chosen me. Looking back now, I realized the story could have ended that first night. I could have convinced myself it was nothing but a trick of the rain, a child's overactive imagination. But fate, or whatever you want to call it, wasn't done with me. Because the very next day, the whispers grew louder. When I walked into the classroom that morning, the air felt heavy, clusters of children huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Usually, rainy mornings meant excitement, plans to splash through puddles, excuses to avoid soccer practice. But that day, everyone's attention was fixed on the same topic. "The woman with the mask," they said. "She talks to you." I froze. "What does she say?" another child asked. "Just one thing," came the answer. "She asks, 'Am I pretty?'" The words hung in the air like smoke, and for me, they landed like a weight in the pit of my stomach, because suddenly, the still figure by the fence, the head tilted toward me, all of it had context. The stories continued. If you say no, she kills you instantly. If you say yes, she pulls off her mask. Her mouth is cut open, ear to ear. And then she asks again, "Am I pretty now?" A boy stretched his fingers across his cheeks, pretending to tear his face wide open. Laughter rippled through the room, but it was strained, nervous. Even at 10 years old, we could hear the truth beneath the jokes. I sat in silence, clutching the edge of my desk. My fingers were damp with sweat. I wanted to dismiss it all, but every detail seemed to weave itself into the image I had seen the night before. The black umbrella, the white mask, the way no one else noticed her. By the time classes ended, I was trembling with unease. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it fell harder, turning the streets into streams and puddles that reflected the yellow glow of street lamps. I told myself I'd just run home, keep my eyes down, pretend I wasn't afraid. But fear doesn't listen to reason. Halfway down the road, I heard it. Splashes. Not mine. My shoes slapped against the pavement, but these were different, heavier, deliberate, echoing mine perfectly, step for step. Too close. I spun around. No one was there. Only the slick asphalt gleaming under the lamps, the rain falling in silver lines. I swallowed hard, turned back, and kept walking faster. And then I saw her. Across the street. Exactly where the shadows met the rain. The same beige coat. The same black umbrella. The same white mask, glowing faintly in the storm. She didn't move. She didn't need to, because I could feel it. Her eyes locked on me, even though the mask hid them from sight. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but my body betrayed me. My feet stayed rooted to the ground, as if the rain itself had hardened around them. And then, through the storm, through the roar of cars and the hammering rain, I heard it. Am I pretty? The voice was faint yet piercing, as if spoken directly into my ear. It slid under my skin, into my bones. There was no mistaking it. She was speaking to me. I stumbled backward, my heel plunging into a puddle. Cold water splashed up my leg, but I barely felt it. The world spun. The glow of the lamps flickered. The sound of thunder rolled overhead. I looked again. She was gone, vanished, as though she had never been there. For a long moment, I just stood there, chest heaving, my umbrella shaking in my hands. Then, instinct finally took over, and I ran. I ran until my lungs burned, until my clothes clung to me, until I burst through my front door and collapsed against it. But no matter how fast I had fled, I couldn't escape the words that echoed in my head. Am I pretty? That was the night I realized the stories weren't just stories. She wasn't some faceless legend passed around the playground. She was real. And worse, she had started speaking to me. I wasn't the only one who felt it. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at school grew heavier, darker. like the rain clouds that refused to leave the sky. And then came the news. One of the older boys, Min-soo, a 6th grader, had vanished. I remember the whispers spreading through the hallways, the way children clutched each other's sleeves as they spoke. He never came home. They found his umbrella by the river. His friends said he saw her. My stomach turned cold. The story went that Min-soo had been walking home when the woman appeared. She stepped out of the rain, blocking his path. She raised her umbrella and tilted her masked face toward him. And she asked the question, "Am I pretty?" His friend didn't know what he said in response. Maybe it was no, maybe it was yes. It didn't matter. Because either way, Min-soo never made it home. The teachers told us it was an accident, that the police were looking for him. But the children didn't believe that. We knew. We knew she had taken him. The effect was immediate. Children began carrying charms, talismans, anything they thought might keep her away. Some slipped candy into their pockets. If you give it to her, she gets distracted and lets you go. Others carried small mirrors, swearing that if she saw her reflection, she would vanish. I hid a small pair of scissors in my school bag, gripping it so tightly my knuckles ached whenever I walked home. But in my heart, I already knew. None of it would matter. The rain never stopped. Day after day, the sky hung heavy and gray. The playground was reduced to mud, the air damp and oppressive. And yet, despite the dread, life went on. Classes continued, lessons dragged by. It almost felt normal, until Friday. That afternoon, the final bell rang, and the children poured out the doors, umbrellas bobbing like a field of mushrooms. I lingered. I always lingered, as though leaving last might somehow keep me safe. When I finally gathered my things and stepped into the hallway, I realized I'd left a book behind. So I turned back. The corridors were empty, silent except for the drum of rain on the windows. I walked quickly, trying to ignore the way my shoes squeaked against the wet floor. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. Through the rain-streaked glass of the window, she was standing in the middle of the playground. Not outside the fence this time. Inside, on school grounds. My breath caught. There was no mistaking her. The beige coat, the black umbrella, the white mask that seemed to glow faintly through the storm. She didn't move. She didn't need to. Her very presence hollowed out the air around her. Then, slowly, she lifted her head, and I knew without a doubt she was looking at me. The book slipped from my hands, landing with a thud that echoed down the corridor. The sound seemed to break something in the silence, because then I heard it.
Am I pretty?
The voice was everywhere at once, inside my ears, inside my chest, rattling my bones. It wasn't coming from the playground. It was right next to me. I staggered back, heart hammering against my ribs. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying that when I opened them again, she would be gone, that it was only my imagination. But when I looked again, she was still there, closer now. That was when my body finally obeyed my terror. I ran. I ran down the hall, my shoes slipping on the wet linoleum, my breath tearing in my throat. I barreled down the stairs 2 at a time, nearly falling, driven only by the need to escape. But when I reached the front gate, the world was wrong. There were no children, no teachers, no sound of life at all. Only rain frozen in the air, falling but never landing. The school itself seemed suspended, trapped in some silent dream, and I knew she wasn't outside anymore. She was already here, and she was waiting for me. The storm came that night. Not the gentle, rhythmic rain of the days before, but a violent downpour that rattled the windows and shook the walls of the house. Thunder cracked overhead like the sky itself was tearing apart, and lightning lit up my small bedroom in sharp, unnatural flashes. I sat on the floor with a flashlight clutched in one hand, a pair of scissors in the other. The power had gone out an hour earlier, leaving the house in suffocating darkness. My mother was working late. My father was away. I was alone. And I knew even at that age that the house was not safe. She had already stepped onto the school grounds, had already looked at me through the rain. Why would four walls stop her now? I whispered to myself, trying to stay calm. This is home. She can't come in here. She can't. But my voice trembled, and the words rang hollow. Then I heard it. At first I thought it was just the storm, rain hitting harder against the window. But the sound was too steady, too deliberate. Someone, something was knocking. Slowly, against every instinct screaming at me to stay still, I turned toward the window. The beam of my flashlight trembled across the glass, and there she was, standing outside my second-floor window in the pouring rain, as if gravity itself meant nothing. Black umbrella tilted, white mask gleaming in the flash of lightning. Her coat was bone dry, untouched by the storm. I couldn't breathe. She raised a hand and pressed her palm to the glass. Water trickled down her wrist, smearing against the pane. And then I saw something that turned my fear into something deeper, something impossible. It wasn't her face staring back at me. It was mine. My reflection in the window was wearing a mask. Its eyes were pale, lifeless, staring straight into me. And beneath the mask, where my lips should have been, the skin was torn wide open, ripped from ear to ear. I froze, scissors slipping from my hand. The sound of metal hitting the floor barely registered. My reflection smiled. And then it spoke. Am I pretty? The words vibrated inside my skull. I stumbled backward, my flashlight beam shuddering wildly across the walls. But no matter how far I moved, the reflection stayed close, leaning in as though the glass wasn't even there. The window rattled, not from the wind, but from the thing inside the glass, shaking it from within. And then, my reflection lifted its hands and pulled off the mask. The torn mouth gaped open, black and endless, as if the void itself lived inside me. That smile, my smile, stretched impossibly wide. I scrambled to the corner of the room, back pressed to the wall, unable to look away. My reflection's lips moved again. Am I pretty now? A flash of lightning filled the room, and I saw it clearly. My own face, split and grinning, pressing its hand against the inside of the glass, trying to push through. The window shattered, but no shards fell, no rain poured in. Instead, a thick black smoke spilled into the room, curling across the floor, rising up like a living shadow. The last thing I remember before everything went black was my own reflection's voice, whispering in perfect clarity. So, how about now? When I opened my eyes, the storm was gone. Or maybe it hadn't ended at all. Maybe it had simply paused. I was lying on the floor of my bedroom, but everything was wrong. The window that should have been shattered was whole again. The walls were dry, unbroken, untouched. It was as if nothing had happened, except for the silence. The clock on my desk read 11:40. Its hands didn't move. The ticking had stopped. And outside the window, the raindrops hung suspended in midair, each one frozen like a bead of glass. The world had stopped moving. Everything, except me. I rose unsteadily to my feet, my body trembling. The house was silent. Too silent. I walked through the hallway. The cup on the kitchen table stood at an odd angle, mid-tip, as though someone had brushed against it. But it wasn't falling. It wasn't moving at all. The entire world was caught in a single moment. And that was when I felt it. The presence. At the door. The front door stood open, just slightly. A pale light leaked through the crack. I stepped closer, each movement slow, deliberate, like wading through water. When I pulled the door open, the night air rushed in, cold, damp, and heavy with silence. The rain was still there, but frozen. Raindrops hung in the air like diamonds. Puddles rippled outward, but never spread. The entire street was locked in place. And there she was, standing in the middle of it all. Black umbrella tilted, beige coat unmoving in the wind that no longer blew. White mask glowing faintly in the strange, still light. She was waiting for me. I should have run. I should have slammed the door shut, but my feet moved forward, step by step, as though something deep inside me longed for this. She raised her head, and through the frozen curtain of rain, I heard her voice. "Am I pretty?" The words pierced the silence like a blade. I wanted to scream, to say nothing, to collapse. But my lips wouldn't move. She lowered her umbrella. Her hand reached up. And then she removed the mask. The mouth was there, torn, split from ear to ear, black and bottomless. But the face was mine. I staggered backward, hands flying to my cheeks. I felt it, wet, cold, wrong, a mask covering my skin, and beneath it, a wound stretching wide, splitting me open. I gasped, but no sound came out. Only laughter, my laughter, her laughter. The ground beneath me rippled, dark liquid rising from the puddles like smoke. It coiled around my legs, dragging me down. I clawed at the air, but the darkness pulled harder. I looked up one last time, and what I saw wasn't her anymore. It was me, standing there in the rain, holding the umbrella, wearing the mask, smiling with a mouth torn wide open. Her voice, my voice, spoke again. "How about now?" And then, everything went black. Weeks later, the whispers returned to the school. They say she's still there. On rainy days, by the gate, a woman in a mask. The children told the story in trembling voices, pretending to laugh, pretending not to believe. But some of them swore it was true, that they saw her waiting by the fence, still as stone. And some of them said, if you looked closely enough, she didn't look like a stranger at all. She looked like one of them. I can't say if I ever escaped, because maybe I didn't. Maybe I became the story itself. Now, when the rain falls, I stand there, umbrella in hand, mask across my face, waiting for the next child who dares to meet my eyes. And when they do, I'll ask the only question I have left. Am I pretty?